Hello and welcome to the Collecting Heroes podcast. I'm your host JD, the collector of collectors, and this is the podcast where I speak to other pop culture collection. This is the podcast where I speak to other pop. Let me try this again. This is the podcast where I speak to pop culture collectors from around the world. There we go. And today, I'm taking things to power level 9000 with my next guest. His name is Axel. He's from Indiana, and he is a Dragon Ball collector. Axel, thank you very much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, JD.
Yeah. I'm really excited to chat to you. We were chatting a little bit before we started recording, and I was obviously just giving you a bit of explanation of how the podcast works and the conversation and everything. And similar to a guest that I had a few episodes ago, who's a Sailor Moon collector, you're another one, a collector who I'm really stepping outside of my comfort zone because I don't really know anything about Dragon Ball. Well, I know very little about Dragon Ball, I will say. Firstly, I know about the over 9,000 meme, which is obviously what I use as a segue. I know who Goku is, and I think I know about going Super Saiyan. I think anyone who's familiar with a little bit of pop culture probably knows what going Super Saiyan is as well.
There you go. Yeah, that's three things that you should know, and so you got them.
I got them. Okay, excellent. But
good.
If you were at a local barbecue and someone there that you just met said, "Oh, explain what is Dragon Ball," what would you say? Like, how would you explain Dragon Ball to someone?
Oh my goodness. It's just one of the best animes out there, I would say. First of all, it's incredible, action-packed, a lot of drama, very intense anime. I don't know. I guess those are the main things that I would say. First of all, I wouldn't spoil it to them because if they don't know and I want to explain it to them, I'm gonna spoil the whole thing for them. But
okay,
you definitely should watch it. Yeah, that's probably what I would say.
Fair enough. I did a little bit of research, and by research, I watched a video on what is Super Saiyan, the different levels of Super Saiyan. I was quite amazed by how many different levels there are of going Super Saiyan,
Yeah.
and like God level, like Saiyan sort of. But also, went through the wiki and had a look at the history. I was quite surprised. I thought, in my mind, for some reason, I'd always sort of attributed Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z to being something that was like sort of late 90s, early 2000s. But I found out that the manga, it came from a manga series, which actually was written through 1984 to 95. The creator, Akira Toriyama. And yeah, basically, I wasn't aware that it was that old, that it actually went back that far.
Yeah.
Do you have any of the original mangas in your collection?
You know what? Like, I started with the anime. Actually, I watched the first, like, how you say Dragon Ball and then Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
I started watching Dragon Ball when I was, 10 years old. I mean,
nice.
The thing is that in Mexico, because I'm originally from Mexico,
yeah,
the anime became so huge, so popular, like in the middle of the 90s in Mexico, due to the fact that it was cheaper for Mexican TV broadcasters to bring it in and translate it. So Dragon Ball was one of the first ones that they brought in. Well, I should say second or third anime that they brought in that was a huge hit in Mexico. So
nice.
I became fan, with Kid Goku on Dragon Ball and the whole transition to Dragon Ball Z. And I didn't know it was that old, like, either. Back back in the 90s, you didn't have an internet, so you didn't know that this thing was made, like, 5 or 6 years ago, and you were just starting to watch it.
Well, that's cool. I obviously, you can hear the accent. I knew that you may have grown up somewhere else, so it's cool to know that you're from Mexico. With the show, when it came there, was it translated to Spanish or English?
There were two translations, and they did like a pilot run for 30 episodes,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a huge hit. And then they changed the translations to a more refined Spanish, like a Mexican Spanish, and
Okay.
then it was a huge success after that.
Explain, and going a little bit outside the anime sphere here, but explain to me the different translation versions of the Spanish and the Mexican Spanish. How do they differ slightly?
Goku had a different voice, and like some of the stuff was not refined. I mean, you're talking about translating something from Japanese to Mexican Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
which at the time it was kind of a new thing. So you know the first 30 episodes run, and the translation was not there,
Yeah.
like it was not pristine. What I remember is that they stopped the series, and then they restarted all over again with a better translation, or with a better, dub, with Goku and all the characters, and
Cool.
then it became a huge success.
Okay, cool. And that's so. I mean, that sort of gives me a little bit of a in to how you became a fan. So that's one of the things I always ask people up front at the start of the series is, how did you become a fan of the thing? So for you, it was by watching the anime during the '90s as a kid.
Yeah, it was huge. That's actually, I have a story where, like, the reason why I started watching it was because my dad actually started watching it first,
Oh,
you know,
cool.
and he was like, "Hey, here's the thing, like, we didn't have a good relationship. um you know Things happen, but that 1/2 hour that we spent together watching that show was like the best half hour I had with my dad. So it was like,
Oh, wow.
besides being the best anime, like, besides watching that cartoon, I had that interaction with my dad, which, we got along for those 30 minutes, and it was just, we were geeking out about Goku's adventures as a kid, how he was able to, learn the Kamehameha, and growing up from a kid to, a young adult.
Okay. And do you still see your father? Is your father still around? If you don't mind me asking.
He passed away, like, in 2017.
Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
But
Again, it
you've
was
got
it
good
was
memories.
we had good memories, so
Yeah.
that's stays with me.
That's great. And you're collecting, like with collecting all the figures. Is that something? How long have you been collecting all of these for?
About 5 years now. It started as, again, excuse me, before Dragon Ball. We have another anime that's called Senseiya, but in Mexico they call it Caballeros del Zodiaco, which is like, it was more it was more like zodiac signs, and it was pretty epic anime.
Okay.
And then my transition to Dragon Ball. That's how I started my collection, by collecting Senseiya anime figures, which I don't have around me right now, but I wanted to show
Okay.
you. And then, then I switched to Dragon Ball because it was so much easier to find those kind of figures. They were less expensive, and then, you started with not expensive figures, and then you start upgrading to more high end figures.
So
And
you were still in Mexico when you started your collection back in
oh, no, 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 no,
2017.
sorry. No, I didn't collect anything. I just started like 5 years ago, honestly, like, literally, like, on my early 30s.
Okay, and you were already in the US at that point.
Yes.
Okay, because that's what I was trying to. I was going to ask is it easier finding things in America or in Mexico for for the anime figures? Is there a different type
I,
of branding or anything there as well?
I would say that when I was over there in Mexico, it's been so long. It's been like almost 20, 23 years since I've been in Mexico.
Oh,
So
okay, okay,
as a little kid, I didn't get any of the onto collecting, because it was so hard to get an official figure. You
uh-huh.
get the bootleg figures, but you don't get the original ones because they were so expensive.
Okay,
So I got here into the States, went through college, got my career, and then I decided to, you know what, let's start collecting something that I didn't own when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So it was Senseiya, then Dragon Ball, and then Dragon Ball became this huge thing for me because I start finding more figures and more figures. And going back to Mexican collectors, I do talk to Mexican collectors currently through Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and they say that it's pretty the distribution over there in Mexico is kind of strange. It's not like here in the States we have Bandai Namco or Bluefin back, like a few months back, and they distribute all the anime content or the collectibles.
Mm-hmm.
Over there in Mexico, they have just one distributor, but they're not, they're not as big as Bluefin in the States.
Okay.
So a lot of people get a lot of people from Mexico. What I know is that they ask their friends in the U.S. to buy their figures, and they ship them out to Mexico
Okay.
to get them cheaper.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I tend to buy a number of things from the US and then have them shipped over here as well, so that I can get certain items that don't release in Australia. I mean, we do have quite a number of things down here that we can get a hold of, but some days there are things that I just can't get, from the regular retailers here. So I'll just buy them in the States, get them shipped over with certain pop vinyls if I want the certain sticker version. If I want the Funko store sticker on something, I've got to sometimes order it from there. There's one of the figures up over the top of my head you can see on video here, is a Funko. No, it's a DC exclusive glitter Batman pop vinyl. So they call them the diamond glitters, and that didn't come out anywhere here in Australia. So that's like a perfect example of something that I had to actually get ordered from the States and then get shipped over here as well. So I'm quite familiar with not being able to get 100% of the things here as well.
And that happened actually recently with the whole San Diego Comic-Con. They
Mm-hmm.
released few exclusive figures for events, Comic-Con events, the Dragon
Yep.
Ball SH figure arts. So there were like really a lot of friends from Mexico. They really really want those figures, but they couldn't get them because they were exclusive to events,
Mm-hmm.
Comic-Con events. So you get that. It's really hard to be a collector in Mexico. That's what I would say.
Okay. But
Yeah.
for you, you're lucky. You're one of the fortunate ones that are in the US, and you have quite the collection. I can see some of that in the background for you,
Yeah.
for you as well. Like you've got, looks like the IKEA Expedite or Kallax. No, sorry, that used to be Expedite, but now they call it Kallax. The IKEA
Uh-huh.
Kallax, the cube system,
Yeah.
which is absolutely, for people listening, is packed, absolutely packed with figures. And this is only part of your collection because I've seen on your Instagram you've got quite the collection. Have you got an idea of how many figures you have at this point?
Uh, I did an Instagram reel just recently, and I count most of the figures, and I have about 2,000 right now.
Is
Two
there
thousand.
is there a Guinness World Record for Dragon Ball collectors? I haven't checked actually. I've had a couple of Guinness World Record holders on the show already. Would you be getting towards that sort of amount?
I don't think so. I think there's people that have more than me, and I think that I remember there was one from Peru who had a Dragon Ball collection. You know what? I like maybe a Sensei collection.
Okay.
We should talk about that other anime later on. But yeah, a lot of people in Peru are huge fans of Dragon Ball and other animes. And I remember that they have one Guinness record for Dragon Ball over there.
Oh, okay. Nice. I'll have to seek it out and see who that is. See how many
Yeah,
there are. Some of the, like I said, the Guinness World Record holders that I had on, one of them was a Ghostbusters collector, and
really.
his collection, I believe, if I remember off the top of my head, I think the number was 1,120. But sometimes you may not have the biggest collection in the world, but if you're the first one to submit it, you're the first one to hold the record. You know, so
You're
that's what I
giving me.
learned.
I might give it a try. I mean,
Well, I
who
have
knows?
to tell you, it can be labor intensive. So one of the things that I learned through speaking to them is that you have to you have to sit down. You have to first off, you have to photograph and document every item in your collection. In a lot of cases, they need to be official merchandise as well. You have to sit down, you have to photograph everything, you have to document it, you have to write it all down in a spreadsheet, and then you have to have someone else come in and verify it. If you actually get someone from Guinness to verify it, it can cost quite a bit of money. Or you can have two independent people. So you might say, I'll get you can't have your wife or someone like that, do it for you. You would actually have to get two independent people through maybe a collector network or whoever to come in and verify, and they need to go through and count all those items off. They need to check them all off the list that you've written down. So it can be quite labor intensive. And then after that, you usually have to display it somewhere as well so that people can actually see it and then submit it. And then they have to go through the process of verifying that from their end and then checking it off. So it can take quite a bit of time. I thought about, how it'd be fantastic to one day do that for the Batman record. But I actually had a look, and the current record holder is at around 10,000 items.
And where is he located?
They're in the US as well. Yeah. So I've actually, and this is one for a future episode, but I've been in talks with the former Guinness World Record Batman holder, and I believe at the time had around 4,000. But then when I checked and it had been updated and there was a new collector, he actually took out the record with around 10,000 items, or I think it was just under. I just remember it was a huge amount that I just went, I'm never chasing that unless I win the lotto or something. I'm never chasing that record.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, that would be something. I mean, now that I explained the process, yeah, it will be something very intensive. And
Yeah.
I'm still adding stuff, and I get a lot of comments about, hey, why don't you just do a better setup with your figures? They're so packed and there's a lot, you cannot see them.
There's
I'm
2,000.
like, well, yeah, it's like
how much space does everyone have?
it's just like I can't find the right furniture. That's what I've been telling people too. Like, there's a moment where like, the furniture that I need is discontinued. So it's like I need to look for the perfect one to make a big display. And then sometimes the way, I'm a photographer. That's how I make a living.
Oh, cool.
Doing photography. So for me to have the setup that I have, which is all the figures in one place, not on a specific setup, but just like all together. It's easier for me to just reach, get the figure, and photograph it and put it back into its place. It's more like a convenience way of me, for me to photograph the pictures without take them out of their stand or like disassemble it. It's just like just grab it, light it, photograph it, and post it on Instagram.
Okay, I've noticed that actually because you've got quite a decent following on Instagram, and when I've scrolled through and I've looked through a lot of your images, I noticed that you did quite a bit of toy photography on there. So it makes sense that that's what you do for a living as well, like is photography.
Yeah, it also that's the reason why I kept buying more and more, and that was kind of like an excuse for my wife, kind of like to say, hey, I'm buying this because I need to make new content, and that was a way of like buffer the expense, like saying, like I'm spending this amount of money, but it's for a good cause. I'm making content. I'm making something out of this.
Axel,
It's not.
Let's be honest. How many times did you get to use that excuse, and at what point did she stop accepting that as an excuse?
She already got over it. She's like, I just know you buying stuff. Just buy it. So, but yeah, I mean, it's it's an amazing hobby though. Like, I get to collect what I want. I'm actually just besides Dragon Ball, I'm actually moving into other animes too. Demon Slayer, My Hero Academia, and Jujutsu Kaisen as well. But my strongest is Dragon Ball, of course. And talking about the collection itself, like since I got so much figures, due to the space and not be able to find the furniture, I'm being a little bit more picky about what what I choose for figures.
Yeah.
Now I'm actually like trying to get more exclusive stuff, things that is rare to find.
Hmm.
Uh, so now the stuff that I buy it like directly from Japan. Like most in Japan, they have a raffle. I think it's called Ichiban Kuji. So what they do is like there's rare figures that they raffle. You buy a ticket. You win every time you buy a ticket, but you get a towel, you get a cup, you get like little items, but the big items are the figures and they're
Okay.
rare. I can't buy the raffle tickets, but there's people in Japan that they buy the whole lot, they win all the prizes, and they sell them on eBay
Huh.
at a good price as a bundle. So lately, I've been focusing on getting those figures instead of getting the other regular figures that are like $26. The new the exclusive ones, the Ichiban Kuji, they're like about, if you buy it as a bundle of 7 figures, they're about $500.
Okay.
But those figures in like 1 or 2 years, they're double the price. So
Wow.
by the time I buy a figure that cost me $100 when it gets released on eBay, in 2 or 3 years, that figure, if I keep the box, of course, uh, it goes for 300 or $250
I was
quickly.
going to ask you, like, if you got a number of your items from Japan, if that, like, obviously we spoke about the difference between getting something in America versus Mexico, but then I was wondering about whether being obviously a Japanese anime, if you did get a
Mhm.
lot of your figures from there, so that makes sense that you would. Talking about the boxes, actually, do you hang on to a lot of the boxes? Like, what percentage of your collection would you say you still have the boxes for?
I think I got rid of about 60% of my boxes.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to live in another house, and when we moved to this new house just 2 years ago, I had to get rid of the boxes. I just couldn't.
Too
It
many.
kept. Yeah, there was just too many. So I got rid of the boxes that were from small figures that I knew I was not gonna sell for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So I threw those away, and the only ones I keep right now are the ones that are just the one exclusive to Japan, the Ichiban
Hmm.
Kuji, because I
Hmm.
know for sure that you never know. There's an emergency that might happen. I might be able to sell them and get my money back
Okay.
eventually. So, but I'm also about collecting is that I get doubles too.
Uh,
That whole thing of like, all right, I'm gonna get one for me to display and get another one just in case I needed to sell it or I need to trade it for something more rare.
and that was you. You literally, like, it's like you're thinking of what I am. You're one step ahead of me. So when you have your collection, because you're talking about potentially selling things or trading things, is
Uh-huh.
that something you do a lot? Like, is there a lot of figures that you've traded and sold over your time as a collector as well?
Uh,
Is that how you've expanded your collection more?
I'm actually just I'm currently in that transition of just buying second figures. Actually, just started this year buying doubles. So I haven't done trades or I haven't done selling. I haven't sell any of my doubles yet because I'm
Okay,
just waiting for the right moment to sell them to get a better, to get some money back.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean,
And what?
I go
I
ahead.
think you could go.
Oh, it's just like sometimes I buy it on good. I have good deals. I find like I give you an example. I buy an SH figure art, which is an articulated action figure
Yeah.
from Dragon. I bought a Super Saiyan 4 Goku that when it got released, it got super rare to find. It was like $65, and a lot of people were selling it for like double the price. And then, once time went by, I found it cheaper. Like I ended up finding it for like $30, $25 with all the discounts that I was able to accumulate.
Uh-huh.
And I bought 5 figures. So right now I have those figures. And then next year they're gonna release Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, which is from Dragon Ball GT. I should have
Okay.
mentioned that first. So I know for sure and I'm thinking ahead, and maybe it's just a speculations, collecting and buying doubles and selling them.
You're thinking
It's
of pairing them up? So you're thinking
yeah,
once the other one's released, you can pair them up, and then obviously other collectors will want to get the matching pair.
yeah. That's my approach. That eventually I'll be able to sell them both figures and get a little bit of a cut for
Okay.
to keep sustaining the collection.
Yeah, that makes sense. And obviously, collecting can be expensive, especially
Yeah,
when you're looking at 2,000 or so items. I don't want to do the maths on that. But like I know myself, I'm probably not at 2,000 yet. I'm definitely past a few hundred items in my collection. But yeah, I can only imagine, and it also, not even taking the cost out of it, just as we mentioned, the space to put them, the space to have your empty boxes if for anything that's on display, and then again, if you're starting to double up or even more than having more than double of an item, just trying to store those. How do you find storing those items with those extra items? Do you have an extra bedroom and cupboards in the house? Like, is your wife starting to complain about the fact she can't fit anything in a cupboard anymore?
not yet, but eventually we'll get to that. Like I got a second room where I put in all the boxes from my doubles. And again, since I'm just starting, I'm trying to just measure my space. I like 30% of my collection is doubles.
Okay.
Like so. But yeah, I keep them on a separate room, and they're well packed. I'm actually. I tell my wife I play Tetris, so I kind of know how to put everything together. So I'm pretty. I'm able to pack everything in a place, and I still have plenty to fill. But eventually I need to start either selling stuff or getting rid of more boxes eventually.
Okay.
And I'm dreading that moment. But for
Mhm.
now, we're still good with
You're
with
still
the
good
space.
now. Okay,
Yeah,
that's good. It is your wife a collector of anything as well?
shoes.
Shoes?
No, she's not a collector, but I really thank her for helping me and for she doesn't say no to the things I do. And this collection has a purpose too. Like I said, I do photography for a living, and the account that I created on Instagram was kind of like a result of the pandemic
Mhm.
because I was not able to do photography of other stuff because we were in lockdown.
Yeah.
I would say, I have a portion of my collection available for me, and I was like, why don't I just take pictures of my collection? And I decided to create another account for photography, which is the one, the Gold Osaru account.
Okay. So
So
with your collection being, like you said, about 5 years that you've been collecting for, so roughly around 2017,
mhm.
which I'd be remiss to say that there seems to be a little connection to when your father passed to when the collection started. Putting that aside,
Uh-huh.
uh, your collection, did it like sort of explode when the pandemic and you started buying things for photography? Would you say your collection was a lot smaller going into 2020?
Yeah, it was a lot smaller. It was a lot smaller before the pandemic. I was kind of like just keep it on check. I just needed this figure and I need this one. But after the pandemic, everything got so rare to find. There's certain figures that I call it the pandemic relics
Yeah.
because you couldn't. They got released on that year, and then they were not released anymore. So they got so expensive, and I was able to get some of those figures. So it exploded from 2020 to 2021. I started getting more figures, and I started investing in more Dragon Ball figures at that time, due to the pandemic as well.
Who did you find? Because I think anyone who's a collector would have experienced during 2020 and 2021 shipping delays and things that got pushed back in production and everything like that. I think that happened to just about every type of
Every,
collector.
yeah,
But and obviously the world's shut down and things that have been shut off. Like of course that was going to happen. have you got items that you're still waiting, that like are been long pushed back, or items that maybe got cancelled that you're like, oh, I really wish I had been able to get that item during
I
the
think that wave of Ichiban Kujis of that 2020 got some of them got canceled,
Okay.
and they couldn't be shipped from Japan at that time. And I dread the time. I really, I feel, I felt kind of sad that it got canceled because those figures now, they're so expensive. Especially there's one Vegeta figure that I really, really wanted it, and it cost $50 at the time. Now it's like $150,
Wow.
and yeah, I could put the money to get the figure, but honestly, like I just it's just too much.
I was literally looking at I'll refer to pop vinyls again, like because it's a large chunk of my collection has become pop vinyl centered. But I was looking again the other day at a Bane, so from the Dark Knight,
Mhm.
not like what the Dark Knight trilogy, sorry, from Dark Knight Rises. So the Bane pop is actually, I remember when I started sort of collecting these a bit more. Again, same thing. It was during the pandemic. I'd already had a Batman collection. I already had a number of items, but the pop vinyls, I probably started collecting a lot more from 2020 onwards, and that's when that part of my collection really exploded. But this Bane pop vinyl, I remember originally I didn't really want to pay more than about $50, $60 for most of the pop vinyls in my collection. I sort of set that as a bit of a rule, and I've since broken that. But back then, that Bane figure was about $80. It was
Okay.
probably between $60 to $80, and I was like, yeah, I'll see. Maybe I'll find one at a discount somewhere. Someone will be selling it cheaper, and I'll wait and wait. So I shouldn't have waited. I should have grabbed it because now it's in most places it's around $300 to buy.
Oh my God. Is it one of those is that Bane as big as the Batman you have in the back? Like
No, so you're referring to the large ones up behind me. I've got the 18-inch pop vinyl. It's definitely not that size. It costs as much nearly as one of those. Like that, I think they were around $200 or so when they came out in Australia. So yeah, that's an 18-inch one, and then next to that, I've got the 10-inch Robert. Actually, it's called a 9-inch one, which
mhm.
came out in 20. I think these were actually in 20. I want to say 2018. So I bought that recently. I bought it. The box was a bit damaged, but I took it out of the box, so it didn't really matter. And I bought that, and I got it at a discount. I've been watching forever to try and get one of those ones. And then next to that is the 10-inch Robert Pattinson one from the recent Batman movie. So yeah,
Amazing.
it's the normal size. It's one of the normal sort of 4-inch pop vinyls in the Bane one. But yeah, it's $300. It's just ridiculous amount of money. I'm like, okay, so that's now a Grail item that I probably won't end up adding to my collection anytime soon. Who knows? What I'll never say never, but yeah, it's definitely one of those ones that I've just sort of been waiting on. I tend to really wait out, with the items and see if they come down in price. And in some cases it works, in some cases it doesn't.
Yeah, that's when I come back to that speculation. Like for me, I learned that Vegeta figures
Yeah.
tend to become super rare and like a lot of people look for those figures more than Goku. I guess Vegeta has become this, a favorite in many fans in Dragon Ball because he used to be the second, best character. Now a lot of people think that Vegeta has a better statue wise. He's a lot of people are looking for him, and he gets every time they release the Vegeta figure, it's the first one that gets out of stock.
Am
So
I correct in saying he's the villain, or
no,
is he not? No, he's
he's not.
not.
He's because when I was a kid, Vegeta had this like mentality of like like an anti-hero, like an antagonist,
Oh,
and
okay.
and then you see his growth from Goku is all about fighting, having friends, making his enemies friends, and Vegeta, I don't know, as a kid I didn't like him. He was just I would say, but then, you grow as an adult and you see that you know behind the scenes, he's a character has grown. He was able to maintain a family connection, but still be able to train as a Saiyan. He has that more balanced lifestyle than Goku. Goku does forget about family and just trains and wants to become the strongest being on that universe. And Vegeta is more like, yeah, I want to be the strongest, but I also have a wife and 2 kids. Which, as an adult, you get that connection of like, all right, I want to become strong and I want to become this, this person, but at the same time, I want to have a balance with family, and just have that balance of an adult.
Okay,
So
that makes sense.
yeah, that character has grown on me a lot, and it seems that for most of Dragon Ball fans, it has grown as well, and you can see reflected on how all his statues get sold so quickly.
Okay, well, let's. I'd love to focus around Dragon Ball, but you did mention that there's another popular anime, or like
Yeah,
a Mexican. Is it an actual Mexican written one, or is it just more popular in Mexico?
it was it's a Japanese one. It's called Senseiya.
Sensei.
It,
Okay.
yeah, and it's kind of hard to explain it because I don't even though I'm a fan, I don't follow the lore as much as I do with Dragon Ball.
Okay.
But it's just what they do is how can I explain it? It's mostly like zodiacs signs and like the cosmos and like the energy. I don't know. I
So
would
the
like to use.
people pulling from the cosmic energy of the different zodiac signs is there's
Yeah,
different heroes and people that are focused on
uh-huh.
those sort of things, kind of like Sailor Moon with the different planets. Is it that some similar sort of
Kind of
thing?
like kind of like that. It's actually the big three back in Mexico were Senseiya, Dragon Ball, and Sailor Moon.
Okay.
The big animes that we used to watch in Mexico were those three.
Okay.
It's kind of complicated to explain as far as like.
That's okay. I won't make you to explain it too much. Actually, let's take it back to the Dragon Ball then. So another thing, because I said I didn't really know a lot about Dragon Ball. I sort of wasn't sure if it was one of those things that maybe sort of originated as more of a card game that, like, in conjunction with the anime. And I think there Dragon Ball cards.
There's a card game. I have a couple friends that they follow that. I don't follow the card game because they can be as expensive as a figure.
Yeah.
Kind of like Magic Gathering. Like you have to go find packs that have special cards.
Yeah.
And I'm not into it as much because of that. I'm just focusing on getting the figures themselves to instead of the
That makes
cards.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the battles that happen in the TV show, is like basically every episode has a different battle, or is it like an arc that leads up to one of these mega Super Saiyan battles? Or
There's definitely an arc. The one that is my favorite is the Cell Saga, which is the second arc in the Dragon Ball Z, which they fight androids.
oh, okay,
Yeah, then that's when Gohan, which is Goku's son, turns into Super Saiyan 2 against this being called Perfect Cell. But for that being to be perfect, he had to actually like get 2 androids, like literally swallow 2 androids to become this perfect being, and he becomes a threat to the world. So in that arc, everyone was expecting Goku to be the savior, but at the end, the
Gohan.
transition from Goku's not the only one that has the power to stop this threat, but his son is the one. It's literally just passing the torch to the new
Yeah.
generation.
Is it when you're watching Dragon Ball Z? Is Goku aging? Like, is his son very young at the start, and then he becomes like a young man, sort of like growing up through like the generation? Is that the way that the story arc progresses as well?
Yeah, but the thing is that Goku has died. How many times? Twice. He has died twice.
Okay,
I
but you got to
think
say
like
a few more than that, actually.
He died like at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, and then he dies at the end of the Cell Saga,
Okay.
trying to protect.
Spoiler alert for people, I guess.
Actually, yeah. Ooh.
That's okay. That's okay. That's
on.
all right.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Look, I mean, the series has been around for years, so I'm sure that anyone who's a real fan of it has probably gone through and watched that and seen it already.
Yeah. But I have I have a lot of memories of the first one, which is Dragon Ball, when Goku was a little kid. Again, mostly because of those childhood memories that I have with my dad, and how he was. That actually, I love the transition from Goku there, from being a little kid to at the end of Dragon Ball, he becomes a young adult, and there's a tournament of power. In that series of Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
That Goku always there's three tournaments that happen within the whole Dragon Ball timeline, and Goku was always close to win the tournament, and he never did.
Fell short. Okay.
He fell short until the last arc of the series of Dragon Ball, when he was able to finally win the tournament.
All right. Well, that's watching that progression. I can see how people would.
And I love that progression. And back then, no one thought about Super Saiyan transformations, power levels. It was more like down to earth. No one thought that Goku was an alien, like a Saiyan.
Yeah.
All that stuff develop in Dragon Ball Z, when at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, Goku's brother comes to Earth and say, "You know what? You're not a human. You are an alien, actually." A Saiyan.
I didn't realize. Okay, I didn't realize it was the alien aspect. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a Saiyan race that was.
That makes sense now.
So mostly Goku lands on Earth because they send the Saiyans conquer worlds for Lord Frieza. So they get, if they're low levels Saiyans, they get sent as babies to the planets that they need to conquer. So when they when Goku landed on Earth, his mission was to conquer the Earth. But
as he grows, he loves Earth. He has his family there, and then
the funny part is, like, he hit his head when he was a little baby. So he doesn't remember his mission of conquering the world. So he becomes So he becomes this innocent little boy and learns martial arts.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Man, I've had a history lesson today. This is good. I've learned a bit more. I know a bit more. Expanded my pop culture knowledge. So thank you, Axel. Thank you for teaching me all about Dragon Ball. And your collection is amazing, and I really, really enjoy actually looking at your page and seeing, like I said, you've got the toy photography and some really great images up there. And I think people should go and check it out. So before we wrap up, I always get people to plug their socials at the end. Can you let people know where they can find you?
They can find me on Instagram. My username is Go Osaru. I'm also have a TikTok as well with the same name, Go Osaru. And you can find me there. I do videos, and I do unboxings, and I do photography for all my collection as well. And you can check out everything I have in there.
Nice. Definitely, I recommend anyone who's an anime fan go and check it out, or even just a toy photography fan to go check it out. For sure.
Yeah.
Axel, thank you very much for being on the show. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I look forward to seeing more of your collection.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a great one.
You too.
If you liked the episode, please consider following or subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also join me on Instagram at Collecting Heroes, where you can see photos of the collections of the people that I'm talking to, as well as some of my own.